Daniel chapter 7 Introduction. Finding peace in the chaos. Around 553 BCE, at the time when the Neo-Babylonian Empire under King Belshazzar was crumbling and the Medo-Persian power was rising under Cyrus the Great, Daniel received a vision that shifted his journey from the earthly narratives of chapters 1 to 6 to the heavenly revelations and apocalyptic visions of chapters 7 to 12. Daniel 7 paints a vivid picture of stormy seas and terrifying beasts, reflecting the chaos and uncertainty we often face in our own world. Yet, this vision is not meant to instill fear. It's a divine assurance that no matter how turbulent life becomes, the Ancient of Days is still on the throne. Empires may rise and fall, but God's kingdom endures forever. This chapter lifts our eyes from earthly turmoil to heaven's eternal courtroom, reminding us that the final word belongs to God, and that word is peace, hope, and victory for all who trust in Him. The vision of the four beasts, verses 1 to 8. The dream recorded. God speaks in chaos. Verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream, and visions passed through his mind as he was lying on his bed. He wrote down the substance of his dream. This dream was similar in theme to Nebuchadnezzar's dream in Daniel 2, but this time the revelation came from God directly to Daniel. Even in exile, God spoke to Daniel through visions and dreams, confirming that he remained present and in control. He is neither silenced by circumstance nor sidelined by worldly chaos. The fact that Daniel immediately recorded the substance of his dream demonstrates his spiritual stewardship. He didn't treat the vision as a passing thought. He treasured it as a lifeline of truth. By writing it down, he ensured that these words would carry essential hope and divine guidance for every generation facing their own stormy seas. The vision of chaos. Verse 2. Daniel said, "In my vision at night I looked, and there before me were the four winds of heaven, churning up the great sea." Daniel witnessed a scene of absolute turmoil, yet the source of the agitation was from heaven. The great sea, that is the Mediterranean Sea, represents a political turmoil, chaos, and a restless world of men. In contrast, the four winds, representing forces from all directions, act as a divine agency of God's power. This clarifies that God's sovereign reach is universal and total. No part of history exists outside His observation. Notice a vital distinction here. If the sea were churning on its own, appearing violent and unpredictable, it would mean the world is spiraling out of control. However, because the winds are directed from heaven, we see that the chaos is actually a stirring permitted by God. He orchestrates the forces of history to bring hidden things to the surface and to reveal the future according to His divine design. The distinction of the beasts. Verse 3. Four great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. From this chaos, four massive and distinct beasts emerged. Daniel observed that while these powers were formidable and terrifying, they did not emerge by their own will alone. They rose out of the environment God was stirring. Daniel's focus remained on the fact that no matter how different or great these worldly powers seemed, they are ultimately subjects of a higher spiritual reality, the beasts of power. God sets limits on earthly rulers. Verses 4 to 8. The lion with wings. The majesty of Babylon. Verse 4. The first was like a lion, and it had the wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground, so that it stood on 2 feet like a man, and the heart of a man was given to it. The lion and the eagle symbolize the king of the land and the king of the sky, respectively. The lion embodies royal authority, while the eagle's wings signify the speed of conquest. Together, they portray the Babylonian Empire at the height of its glory under Nebuchadnezzar, 605 to 539 BCE. The transformation from a soaring predator to a creature standing on 2 feet with a human heart reflects the personal journey of King Nebuchadnezzar, as seen in Daniel 4. By forcing the beast to stand like a man, God stripped away its animalistic pride. This vision serves as a lasting reminder that no matter how mighty a kingdom may appear, the Most High will humble its arrogance and prune its predatory nature until His sovereignty is acknowledged. The lopsided bear, the power of the Medo-Persians. verse 5. And there before me was a second beast, which looked like a bear. It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, "Get up and eat your fill of flesh." This beast points to the Medo-Persian Empire, established under Cyrus the Persian and expanded under Darius the Mede. The bear symbolizes immense strength. Its posture, raised up on one side, reveals the imbalance within the alliance, as Persia rose to dominate Media with greater power and aggression. The 3 ribs in its mouth represent the major conquests of Lydia 546 BCE, Babylon 539 BCE, and Egypt 525 BCE. This beast was told to devour, signifying that its expansion was permitted by a higher authority. Though terrifying, the bear acted only within the boundaries set by God. The 4-headed leopard, the speed of Greece, verse 6. After that I looked, and there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard, and on its back it had 4 wings like those of a bird. This beast had 4 heads, and it was given authority to rule. A leopard is already a swift predator, but the addition of its 4 wings signifies speed beyond measure and acceleration unmatched in human history. This points to the breathtaking expansion of the Greek Empire under Alexander the Great, who conquered the then known world in just a few years with astonishing velocity. The 4 heads signify the eventual division of Alexander's empire among his 4 generals, Cassander, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy, following his death in 323 BCE. Note the definitive statement at the end. The leopard was given authority to rule. This is the foundational truth of the verse. Even the most powerful nations and the most rapid changes in our lives operate only under the sovereign access of the King of Kings, the indestructible iron monster, the might of Rome. Verses 7-8. After that, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was a 4th beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the former beasts, and it had 10 horns. Unlike the previous 3 beasts, which were predators driven by hunger, this beast is a destroyer. It doesn't just conquer, it crushes, devours, and tramples everything, leaving nothing but ruins. Historically, this represents the Roman Empire, which established its dominance around 168 BCE and became a superpower known for its iron grip and crushing military force. A horn is a biblical symbol of strength and authority. While other beasts had wings or extra heads, this beast possessed 10 horns, representing 10 kings or political divisions. The number 10 symbolizes a complete measure of earthly force, that is, the absolute limit of human power. This beast was the most frightening of all because Daniel found nothing in the natural animal kingdom to compare it to. It was an unnatural monster, terrifying, frightening, and very powerful, armed with iron teeth and crushing force. However, notice that even this indestructible monster has a limit. It could only trample underfoot what is on the ground, but it could never reach what is in the heavens. It's a powerful reminder that earthly power, no matter how intimidating, always has a ceiling, but God's power has no roof. No matter how unnatural your challenges seem, our God holds the boundary that the beast is strictly forbidden to cross. The boastful intruder, the little horn, verse 8. While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth that spoke boastfully. Though this horn started small, it was aggressive. It uprooted 3 of the existing horn to make room for itself. While the 10 horns were the natural set for that beast, the 11th is an intrusion. It represents a power that will try to go beyond what is given, triggering God's final judgment. Historically, many scholars identify this figure with Antiochus IV Epiphanes, who ruled from 175 to 164 BCE. He was a fierce persecutor of the Jewish people and desecrated the temple in 167 BCE. However, prophetically, this figure points forward to the Antichrist, a blasphemous final power that will rise to oppose God's people. Rather than relying solely on brute force and physical strength like the previous beast, this power will use a more sophisticated kind of warfare to control and manipulate. 1. Strategic intelligence. The eyes. He will use human-like intelligence based on data, perception, and surveillance. This little horn will use its eyes to watch for weaknesses and will calculate its moves with strategic precision. It will not just attack blindly, it will see exactly where to strike for the most impact. 2. Psychological propaganda. The mouth. He will use the power of words and loud boasting to control others. The mouth represents vocal force that will be used to spread propaganda, speaking great things to intimidate. This will be his deliberate attempt to make the people of God feel small, defeated, and outnumbered. The court is in session. The Ancient of Days. Verses 9-10. While the little horn was busy boasting on earth, the atmosphere in heaven changed. Daniel sees thrones, that is, a cosmic courtroom assembly where the final verdict of history is delivered as the Ancient of Days takes his seat. God is portrayed as an eternal judge. His white, snow-like clothing and wool-white hair signify radiance, absolute purity, and eternal wisdom. He isn't a new ruler. He is the Ancient One, existing before the beast rose and would remain long after they fall. His throne was flaming with fire. It was a flaming engine of justice. Its wheels were all ablaze, showing that his judgment is mobile and active. It can reach into any situation, anywhere. Nothing is outside his jurisdiction. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him, representing an unstoppable flow of God's holiness and absolute truth. It exposes every lie and burns away everything that isn't of God. Just as you cannot stop a river but can only yield to it, this river flows with divine purpose to purify and judge. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. This heavenly host shows that the forces in heaven far outnumber any 10 horns or little horns the enemy can produce. The court is seated. This represents stability. While the beast thrash in the stormy sea, God is seated, not pacing in worry or reacting in haste, but sitting in total calm control. And the books were opened. This represents evidence and perfect accountability. It shows that God's judgment is not random or emotional. It's based on the truth of what has actually happened. Nothing is missed and no detail is forgotten. When life feels out of control, remember that the court is in session. The highest authority in the universe is looking at your life with perfect justice and infinite wisdom. The end of arrogance, the execution of judgment on the beasts. Verses 11-12. Then I continued to watch because of the boastful words the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain and its body destroyed and thrown into the blazing fire. Even as the court sat in judgment, the little horn continued to speak boastful words, unaware that its time had run out. Because of its ultimate pride, the fourth beast is completely destroyed and thrown into the fire. Historically, this was seen in the sudden end of Antiochus IV, who died abruptly in 164 BCE during a military campaign in Persia. Just as he was at the height of his pride, the judgment of God brought his reign to a definitive close. In contrast, the previous beasts were stripped of their dominion. Their power to rule and control is taken away. While they are allowed to exist for a final season, they no longer have the authority to devour or dictate history. The Son of Man, verses 13-14. In my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All peoples, nations, and men of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. This points to Jesus Christ, who calls himself the Son of Man, Matthew 26:64. By using this title, Jesus is not just identifying himself with humanity, he is claiming the cosmic messianic authority described in Daniel's vision, a direct claim to the eternal dominion granted by the Ancient of Days. While the beasts of this world are bound by time and limits, the kingdom of Christ has no end. This is the climax of Christian hope. Christ reigns forever. The saints' inheritance. Verses 15-22. Even though Daniel saw the Ancient of Days on the throne, he is still disturbed. This shows that prophetic truth can be heavy and the world's chaos can feel overwhelming. However, the angel explains that while the saints of the Most High will face earthly opposition from these beasts, they will ultimately receive and possess the kingdom forever. The mechanics of the fourth beast. Verse 19. When Daniel asks specifically the meaning of the fourth beast, he is confronting the most terrifying kind of opposition, the kind that feels different and more intense than anything we have faced before. The iron teeth represent unrelenting and unyielding strength, providing an unbreakable grip that allows the beast to devour its prey. The bronze claws represent tearing, wearing, and ensnaring power. While the teeth crush the main body of opposition, the bronze claws are used to trample underfoot the remnants, ensuring that the destruction is total and nothing can be salvaged or rebuilt. Collectively, they create a picture of a situation that feels like it has no weak spot. The war against the saints, verses 20 to 22. Daniel sees that the little horn is permitted to wage war and even temporarily defeat the holy people. However, this struggle is bounded by a divine deadline. It lasts only until the Ancient of Days comes and pronounces judgment in favor of the saints of the Most High. The meaning of the fourth kingdom, verses 23 to 25. Behind the scenes of the fourth beast. Verses 23-24. The heavenly interpreter who was standing near the throne of God explains that the fourth beast is not just an empire but a unique global power that will devour the whole earth. It's described as a system that tramples and crushes, meaning it seeks to dominate every aspect of human life, socially, politically, and spiritually. Out of it comes 10 kings and then another little horn who does not play by the usual rules of power. He is more cunning and aggressive, subduing 3 other kings to establish his own supreme authority. The threefold attack and the divine deadline. Verse 25. Let's look at the 3 ways this power seeks to dominate our world. 1. Speak against the Most High. This is a spirit of blasphemy. The enemy uses words, propaganda, and pride to mock God's authority. 2. Oppress the saints. This is a spirit of exhaustion. The Hebrew word for oppress, Bela, implies slowly thinning down someone. He will drain the strength of the saints through constant nagging pressure rather than a single blow. 3. Try to change the set times and laws. This is the spirit of disruption. He will tell that the old ways of faith are obsolete and that he is the one who controls time and destiny. A time, times, and half a time prophetically represents a period of 3.5 years. It shows that the enemy has a deadline. He is only given a limited, labeled, and legal window of time. Even when the saints are handed over, they are never abandoned. The enemy may think that he is changing the times and laws, but he is actually operating within the cage of time built by the Creator. Historically, the persecution of Antiochus lasted approximately for 3.5 years, 167 to 164 BCE. The final verdict, verses 26-27. The end of the beast's calendar, verse 26. But the court will sit and his power will be taken away and completely destroyed forever. The vision concludes with a dramatic shift from the chaos of the earth to the certainty of the court. The heavenly courtroom officially sits in session to strip the little horn of its authority. His power will then be terminated, confiscated, and obliterated forever. The great handover, verse 27. The very things the beast tried to steal, sovereignty, power, and greatness, are legally transferred to the saints. While the enemy's kingdom was built on crushing and tearing, this new kingdom is everlasting, established on the worship and obedience of the Most High. The sealed heart, the conclusion of the matter. Verse 28. This is the end of the matter. I, Daniel, was deeply troubled by my thoughts, and my face turned pale. But I kept the matter to myself. Verse 28 marks the transition from the heavenly vision back to earthly reality. Even though Daniel was given the promise of ultimate victory, the sheer weight of what he saw left him deeply troubled and physically shaken. His pale face shows that understanding the future is a heavy burden even when you know that God wins. Daniel's decision to keep the matter to himself is his deep spiritual maturity. While Daniel 7:1 tells us that he immediately wrote the substance of his dream, as an act of prophetic stewardship, he did not rush to broadcast the revelation to the Babylonian public or the royal court. By choosing to keep the matter guarded in his spirit, he treated the vision of the earth's future with divine solemnity rather than seeking public attention. Daniel understood that God's voice of certainty must be treasured and processed until the Father's appointed time to reveal his sovereign plan for the nations. Conclusion: the throne above the storm. Daniel 7 is your declaration that every beast of pride must fall before the Son of Man. When challenges come in a set of 10 and the little horn of doubt whispers that you won't make it, remember that the enemy's voice is temporary, but the Father's promise is an unshakable reality. Stop measuring God's power by the size of your beasts. Every struggle has a divine deadline, and in the courtroom of heaven, your case is already won. You aren't just surviving a storm. You are an empowered representative inheriting a kingdom that cannot be shaken. Walk boldly, for the Ancient of Days is on the throne. The Son of Man is your advocate, and victory is already written in your story.